Hello, creative writing students who tried to get into the class um, on Blackboard this morning and could not. I have written a little poem in your honor. This is just to say we have failed to have the class which was scheduled for 10 this morning and which you were certainly planning on attending. Forgive me, Blackboard malfunctioned again. So often and so frustratingly. So that poem I wrote in honor of one of the poems in the week 9 lesson. If you recall, we have this pace chart, and in the pace chart you will notice that the big thing to do this week is to make sure that the fiction focus unit is done. And so I'm thinking that we've had lots of time, many people are done with this, it's due in week 9, and then we have spring break, and I'm thinking that even my late starters, with maybe the exception of Emmy, but I'm thinking that by now all my students should be nearing the end of the fiction focus and able to get caught up with our current unit in poetry. So I'm hoping to see Chris and Jasenia, especially you two should be joining us on pace with us by the end of spring break, I'm thinking. And Emmy, if you use your spring break well, you'll be really close to that. All right, so everyone else, we'll just keep plugging away. Don't forget when you turn in your fiction project that self-reflection chart needs to be turned in. Otherwise, it's a -10 deduction right off the bat, and you might fail to, I might fail to notice your illusion, your allegory, your foreshadowing, your flashback if you don't point it out to me in that reflection. So you might end up losing more points by not doing this. All right, and then you are going to begin under your poetry focus. There went my announcement. We are going to begin with advanced poetry elements. And you're going to read through the lesson until you get to the poem draft assignment. So I'm going to flip through that quickly. This, by the way, this class is going to be less than 15 minutes long because that's all Screencast-O-Matic gives me. So don't forget about symbolism, some of the common symbols in poetry and literature and life. You could make your own symbol. And there are poems that show symbolism. The most famous one on this page is I Am Acquainted with the Night. And in this poem by Robert Frost, we have night could be several different things. It could literally be night, or it could be symbolic of death, or it could represent something totally, could just represent like a dark and dreary time in one's life. And if you look really closely at that poem, you will notice that even though it's not in 3 stanzas, it meets the characteristics of a sonnet. So examine that, if you will. So you're going to keep reading. This one always struck me as interesting that this is a poem at all. But I've since become convinced that such things are powerful. The red wheelbarrow, I think it's just hard for me to say. That might be my reluctance to accept it as poetry, though I love William Carlos Williams and many other poems. The red wheelbarrow. So much depends on a red wheelbarrow glazed with rainwater beside the white chickens. And it just kind of is that puzzle to think about what depends on a red wheelbarrow with rainwater and chickens. And it kind of is sort of an homage to agriculture and the importance of, that's how I look at it anyway, the importance of farming, working with the dirt, that's what the red wheelbarrow symbolizes, and the importance of hydration or water, and the importance of food sources like chickens. So, and then this author, Natalie's, she talks a little bit more about it being just beauty in everyday objects. Here's This Is Just to Say poem that I was, again, William Carlos Williams, that I was mimicking at the beginning of our podcast here. This is just to say I have eaten the plums that were in the icebox and which you were probably saving for breakfast. Forgive me, they were so sweet and they were delicious, so sweet and so cold. There is, this is kind of, I don't know, I've heard an NPR, there's my little homage to Olivia there. NPR did a whole thing last year on This Is Just to Say parodies. And there's Kenneth, I can't think of his last name, Koch, I believe, has written an entire, Kenneth Koch, there it is, an entire like selection of parodies on This Is Just to Say, variations on a theme. And some of these are more interesting than others. I chopped down the house that you had been saving to live in next summer. I'm sorry, but it was morning and I had nothing to do, and its wooden beams were so inviting. We laughed at the hollywoods together, and then I sprayed them with lye. Forgive me, I simply do not know what I am doing. I gave away the money that you had been saving to live on for the next 10 years. The man who asked for it was shabby, and the firm March wind on the porch was so juicy and cold. And last evening we were dancing and I broke your leg. Forgive me, I was clumsy and I wanted you here in the wards where I am the doctor. So in case you haven't sensed this with the This Is Just to Say, it's sort of an apology, but a very insincere apology. He's not really sorry he ate those plums because they were cold and juicy and delicious. He's not really sorry she broke her leg because now she's a patient in his hospital ward, where he wanted to spend time with her. So these are insincere apologies, and I sent a link as this being one of the assignments you could maybe do. So your writer's notebook, disappear in the moment or apologize. And that brings you to the discussion, which I changed. I was bored with these kind of discussions on irony, etc. And so I thought we might want to share some poetry here for a little while. And even I shared poetry this time. So I asked you to share 3 poems and then to go back in and tell your classmates which poem you think they should turn in to me for their poetry draft. You'll notice I also link here to an instant This Is Just to Say poem if you want to have some fun with it. My 8th graders in brick and mortar school are using this today. And so you can play around with that one if you'd like. And you can use that as one of your poems to post in the discussion. So that brings us back. I always forget to mark down what page number that discussion was on. I think it's 9. Nope, it was 10. And then you go into talking about irony. The irony of The Perfect Rose is one of my favorites, where she talks about, her boyfriend or her partner cared enough about her to go shopping for one perfect rose, and she's just wondering why no one's ever cared enough to go shopping for, I don't know, like one perfect SUV or what. That's not exactly what she says, but why didn't you just go buy me one perfect, expensive gift that I've been wanting. And E.E. Cummings, hard to understand at first, an E.E. Cummings poem, but if you like word puzzles and to try to really figure out what he's doing, there's no one that makes you think more about his technique, I think, than E.E. Cummings. Pity this busy monster, man unkind. Pity this busy monster, man unkind. Not. Progress is a comfortable disease. Your victim, death and life safely beyond, plays with the bigness of his littleness. Electrons deify one razor blade into a mountain range. Lenses extend on wish through curving wherein till on wish returns on itself. A world of made is not a world of born. Pity poor flesh and trees, poor stars and stones, but never this fine specimen of hyper-magical ultra-omnipotence. We doctors know a hopeless case if, listen, there's a hell of a good universe next door. Let's go. So, when you read these, you have to read it really carefully, but make sure you don't write the poem off until, until you take the time to read what he's saying and what techniques he's using. And he's speaking out against progress and against man's belief that he is above everything else, because he talks about how complicated even the smallest things are if you look at them in an electron microscope. All right, trying to get my page to turn, and it's going to be difficult for me now, isn't it? And then they talk about litites or litites, litity and irony. Irony is probably something you've studied before, but litites are probably new. And I hope that you watch this because it's very, I don't know, I very much enjoy them. But I don't have time to play it because I'm down to 4 minutes left. But a litity is kind of like understatement. He isn't a genius has a different meaning from saying he's dumb. It's not a problem. I'm not unhappy. So this is that lito. It's kind of like a double negative, or it can be a, it doesn't have to be a double negative, like he isn't a genius. And it has a lot to do with tone. So watch this carefully, because this is a technique that I think is new for most of you. And correct me in your summaries if this is something you've studied before. But I know it wasn't anything I ever studied in high school. And I believe the next page after that is going to be where you can, there's another writer's notebook. Then they talk about illusion. And do we even have to do the discussion this time? I mean, the draft this time? I think I was giving you a week on that, right? So you can watch those, and you're supposed to end at the litotes and irony. And then we'll get into illusion and things again next week. So this week's assignments are the fiction focus, finishing that up and making sure you turn in your self-reflection chart, and the irony and ironic tone discussion, which I have changed to be a discussion on your poetry. So you're going to finish up your discussion, and then you're going to share some of your poetry drafts with your classmates. And when you're done listening to this very, very brief Class Connect, please reply. Tell me about my poem at the beginning. Tell me which poems I focused on in my little lesson. And tell me your 2 assignments for the week and what I reminded you to not forget. And that'll be part of my note out to you. When I get that back, I'll give you attendance points for the week. And all you had to do is try to get into the failed class at 10 o'clock this morning and watch a 13-minute and 37, 38, 39 second class. Have a great day. Bye-bye.